The morning sun cast long shadows across the bustling Nexus market on planet Zephyria. This wasn't like any market you'd find on Earth. Here, creatures from dozens of different worlds came to buy and sell everything you could imagine, and some things you couldn't. Zara sat in the corner of a dirty alley between two vendor stalls, her arms wrapped around her knees. 3 days had passed since the traders had left her here. 3 days without food, without shelter, without hope. Her clothes had been taken away, leaving her with nothing but a torn piece of fabric she'd found in the trash. The alien merchants walked by her without a second glance. To them, she was just another piece of unwanted goods. The tall, snake-like Keftar would hiss in disgust when they saw her. Their yellow eyes would narrow with something that looked like hatred. She didn't understand why they found her so repulsive. Maybe it was because she had hair instead of scales. Maybe it was because she cried when she was sad. The crystal beings, called Vexoni, were even worse. They would stop and stare at her with their glowing blue faces, then shake their heads and walk away. She heard one of them tell another, too emotional. These mammals are always crying about something. Zara had tried to approach potential buyers at first. She would stand up, straighten her shoulders, and try to look strong. But every time, the same thing happened. They would look at her scars, the marks on her arms from her failed escape attempts, and turn away. Damaged goods, they would mutter. Not worth the trouble. The market was a maze of colorful stalls and strange smells. Vendors sold glowing fruits that moved by themselves, clothes made from materials that change color in the light, and weapons that hummed with energy. In the center of it all was the most disturbing sight: other beings like herself, standing in cages, waiting to be bought. At least they were in the market. At least someone wanted them. Zara had been cast out even from that terrible place. She was too broken, too difficult, too human for anyone to want. On her second day, she had watched a young alien girl get sold to a wealthy merchant. The girl had cried as she was led away, but at least she was going somewhere. At least someone thought she was worth something. Zara felt a strange jealousy watching that transaction. How desperate had she become that she envied someone being sold? The rain started on the third day. It wasn't like Earth rain. This was purple and slightly warm, with a metallic taste that made her stomach turn. But it was water, and she was so thirsty that she cupped her hands and drank it anyway. The other vendors pulled covers over their goods, and customers hurried to find shelter. But Zara had nowhere to go. She pressed herself against the wall of a building, trying to find some protection from the strange rain. A small creature, something like a cross between a cat and a bird, approached her. It had soft gray fur and tiny wings that fluttered nervously. For a moment, Zara thought maybe, just maybe, she had found a friend. But when she reached out to touch it, the creature took one look at her and flew away. Even the animals here didn't want her. That evening, she overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. The Keftar merchants were standing near her hiding spot, speaking in their hissing language. She had picked up enough words during her time in captivity to understand what they were saying. The human female, one of them said, "She's been here 3 days now. Nobody wants her. What do we do with her?" The other replied, "Same thing we do with all the unsold goods. End of the week, she goes to the processing plants." Zara's heart pounded. She knew what the processing plants were. Everyone in the market knew. It was where they took the things that couldn't be sold, the things that had no value, the things that were better off recycled into something useful. She had 4 more days, for more days to convince someone, anyone, that she was worth keeping alive. That night, she tried to sleep on the hard ground, using her torn piece of fabric as a blanket. The sounds of the market never stopped. Alien languages mixing together, the hum of energy weapons, the cry of strange creatures. But underneath it all, she could hear her own heartbeat, counting down the hours she had left. She thought about her home, the small colony ship where she had grown up. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Her parents had been engineers working to help terraform new worlds. They had taught her that every life had value, that every person deserved dignity and respect. If they could see her now, what would they think? The next morning brought new hope and new disappointment. A group of wealthy tourists from the inner worlds came through the market. They were looking for exotic pets, unusual creatures to show off to their friends for a moment. Zara dared to hope that maybe one of them would see her as interesting enough to save. But when they saw her, they wrinkled their noses and walked away quickly. Disgusting, one of them said. How can they let creatures like that just wander around? The market guards heard the complaint. They came over to where Zara was sitting and grabbed her arms. You're disturbing the customers, one of them growled. Stay out of sight or we'll speed up your processing date. They dragged her deeper into the alley, further from the main walkways. Now she was hidden behind stacks of empty crates and broken equipment. The smell back here was terrible. Rotting food, chemical waste, and things she didn't want to identify. But being hidden was almost worse than being ignored. At least when she was visible, there was a chance someone might notice her. Back here, she was truly forgotten. As the fourth day dawned, Zara realized she had lost track of time. Was this her last day? Tomorrow? She couldn't remember exactly when the traders had left her. The days had blurred together in a haze of hunger and despair. She was so weak now that she could barely stand. The purple rain had given her stomach cramps, and she hadn't eaten anything but a few scraps of moldy bread she'd found in a trash container. Her hands shook, and her vision was starting to blur. Maybe this was better, she thought. Maybe it was easier to just fade away here in this forgotten corner of the market. At least she wouldn't have to face the processing plants. At least she could choose how her story ended. But even as she thought it, something inside her rebelled. She was only 23 years old. She had dreams once, plans for the future. She had wanted to see the galaxy, to help build new worlds like her parents. Had that person still existed somewhere inside her, buried under layers of trauma and despair. She closed her eyes and tried to remember what hope felt like, somewhere in the distance. She could hear the sounds of the market continuing its business. Ships arriving and departing, deals being made, lives being changed, maybe, just maybe. Her story wasn't over yet. The sound of heavy boots echoed through the Nexus market as Captain Alex Chen stepped off his cargo ship. He pulled his worn leather jacket tighter against the strange purple rain that had been falling all morning. His ship, the Star Runner, needed new engine parts, and this market was the only place in 3 systems where he could find them. Alex had been traveling alone for 5 years now. He preferred it that way. No complications. No one to worry about except himself. His withered face told the story of someone who had seen too much and trusted too little. The gray streaks in his dark hair made him look older than his 35 years. He walked through the market with practiced efficiency, his eyes scanning the stalls for what he needed. The alien merchants recognized him as a regular customer. He paid fair prices, didn't cause trouble, and minded his own business. That was exactly how he liked it. The first stop was Grix's mechanical parts stall. Grix was a 4-armed creature with green skin and too many teeth, but he sold quality goods. Alex, my favorite human customer, Grix called out in his rough voice. What brings you to my humble stall today? Need a new plasma converter for my main engine. Alex replied, getting straight to business. The old one's about to give out. Grix's forearms moved in different directions, searching through his inventory. Here we go. This one's from a military transport. Top quality, barely used, only cost you 800 credits. Alex examined the part carefully. It looked good, but the price was too high. 600, he countered. 750, and I'll throw in a backup power cell, Grix offered. Deal. Alex transferred the credits from his wrist device to Grix's scanner. This was the kind of simple transaction he liked. No emotions, no personal connections. Just business. As he walked away from the stall, Alex noticed a commotion near the center of the market. A group of well-dressed tourists were complaining loudly to some market guards. He couldn't hear exactly what they were saying, but their disgusted expressions told him everything he needed to know. Probably just another pickpocket, he muttered to himself. He had seen it all before in markets like this. The desperate would do anything to survive. But as he continued shopping, Alex kept noticing the guards. They seemed more agitated than usual, dragging someone or something deeper into the market's back alleys. His military training kicked in automatically. Always assess the situation. Always be aware of your surroundings. He found himself walking toward the disturbance, even though every rational part of his brain told him to mind his own business. He had learned the hard way that getting involved in other people's problems only led to trouble. Behind a stack of empty shipping containers, Alex saw something that made him stop dead in his tracks. A young woman, clearly human, was huddled against a wall. She was barely clothed, shivering in the rain, and looked like she hadn't eaten in days. For a moment, Alex felt like he was looking at a ghost. The woman's face, her dark hair, even the way she sat with her arms wrapped around her knees. It all reminded him of his younger sister, Lisa, the sister he had failed to save when their colony was attacked 7 years ago. He shook his head, trying to clear the memories. This wasn't Lisa. Lisa was dead, along with everyone else he had cared about. This was just another unfortunate soul in a galaxy full of them. But he couldn't walk away. "Hey," he called out softly, approaching slowly so he wouldn't startle her. "Are you okay?" Sarah looked up at him with wide, fearful eyes. She had learned not to trust anyone, especially not humans who might be working with the traitors. But something in his voice was different, gentler. "I'm fine," she whispered, her voice hoarse from thirst. Alex could see she was anything but fine. Her lips were cracked, her skin pale, and her hands shook with weakness. "When's the last time you ate something?" She didn't answer, just stared at him with suspicion. Alex recognized that look. He had seen it in war zones, in refugee camps, in the eyes of people who had lost everything. "Wait here," he said, and walked back toward the main market. He returned a few minutes later with a bottle of clean water and some food packets from his ship's supplies. He set them down near her, but not too close. He didn't want to seem threatening. "It's not poisoned," he said with a slight smile. "Just standard rations. Tastes terrible, but it'll keep you alive." Zara looked at the food, then at Alex. Every instinct told her this was a trap. But she was so hungry, so thirsty, that she couldn't think straight anymore. "What do you want?" she asked. "Nothing," Alex replied. "Just eat something." She reached for the water bottle with shaking hands and took a small sip. When nothing bad happened, she drank more deeply. The relief on her face was obvious. "Thank you," she whispered. Alex nodded and turned to leave. He had done his good deed for the day. Now he could get back to the ship and continue his journey alone. But as he walked away, he heard voices approaching. Two Cathar merchants were talking in their hissing language, and Alex had learned enough of it during his travels to understand what they were saying. "The human female is still here," one of them said. "Processing day is tomorrow." "Good," the other replied. "She's been stinking up the market long enough." Alex stopped walking. Processing day. He knew what that meant. In 24 hours, this woman would be dead. He stood there for a long moment, having an internal battle with himself. He had sworn never to get involved again. After losing Lisa and the entire colony, he had decided that caring about other people only led to pain. It was easier to travel alone, to keep his distance, to focus on business instead of emotions. But the image of his sister's face kept flashing in his mind. Lisa had been about the same age as this woman when she died. She had trusted him to protect her, and he had failed. Maybe he couldn't save Lisa, but maybe he could save someone else. Alex walked back to where Zara was sitting, still eating the food he had given her. She looked up at him nervously. "How did you end up here?" he asked. She hesitated, then decided she had nothing left to lose. "Traitors captured me when they attacked our transport ship. They brought me here to sell me. But nobody wants me. Tomorrow they're going to—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Alex felt a familiar anger building in his chest. The same anger he had felt when he found his colony destroyed, when he realized he had been too late to save anyone. "What's your name?" he asked. "Zara." "I'm Alex, and you're not going to die tomorrow." Zara looked at him with confusion. "What do you mean?" Alex was already walking toward the center of the market, toward the area where the traders conducted their business. "Stay here," he called back to her. "I'll be right back." For the first time in days, Zara felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Maybe. Just maybe. Her story wasn't over yet. 20 minutes later, Alex returned with a concerned expression on his face. "Pack up whatever you have," he said. "We're leaving." "What did you do?" Zara asked. "I bought your freedom," Alex replied simply. "You're coming with me." As they walked toward his ship, Zara couldn't believe what was happening. After days of being treated like garbage, someone had actually cared enough to help her. She didn't know what Alex's real motives were, but for now, she was alive. For now, she had a chance. The Star Runner wasn't the biggest ship in the galaxy, but it was home to Alex. As he led Zara up the loading ramp, she couldn't help but stare at everything around her. The metal carters were clean but worn, with patches and repairs that told. Stories of countless journeys through space. "Your room is down that hallway. Second door on the left," Alex said, pointing toward the back of the ship. His voice was different now, more distant than it had been in the market. "There's a shower in there, and I'll find you some clean clothes." Zara nodded but didn't move. She stood in the main cargo bay, looking lost and confused. "Why did you help me?" she asked quietly. Alex paused at the question. He had been asking himself the same thing for the past hour. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said finally. "Get some rest. We'll talk later." He walked away quickly, leaving Zara alone in the empty cargo bay. The silence felt heavy after all the noise and chaos of the market. She made her way to the room Alex had pointed out, her bare feet cold against the metal floor. The room was small but clean. There was a narrow bed, a small desk, and a tiny bathroom with a shower. After 3 days of sleeping on the ground, it looked like paradise. But Zara couldn't shake the feeling that this was all temporary, that any moment, Alex would change his mind and throw her back out into space. She had learned not to trust kindness. Every time someone had been nice to her since her capture, there had been a price to pay later. What would Alex want from her in return? The shower was the first luxury she had enjoyed in weeks. The warm water washed away the dirt and grime of the market, but it couldn't wash away her fears. As she stood under the spray, she tried to figure out what Alex's real motives might be. When she came out, she found clean clothes waiting on the bed. They were too big for her, obviously men's clothes, but they were clean and warm. There was also a plate of food and a glass of water on the desk, for the first time in days. Zara ate until she was full, but even as her body began to feel better, her mind remained on high alert. She sat on the bed and listened to the sounds of the ship, footsteps in the corridor, the hum of the engines, the beeping of various machines. Alex was in the cockpit, trying to focus on his pre-flight checks, but his mind kept wandering to the woman in the back of his ship. What had he gotten himself into? For 5 years, he had lived a simple life. He went where he wanted, when he wanted. He answered to no. Now he had a passenger. Someone who would ask questions, want to talk, expect things from him. Someone who might die if he made the wrong choice. He thought about Lisa again. His sister had been full of life, always laughing, always asking questions. She had trusted him completely, believed that her big brother could protect her from anything. When the attack came, she had called his name as the building collapsed around her. Alex shook his head, trying to push the memories away. This was different. Zara was a stranger, not family. He would drop her off at the next safe planet, give her enough credits to start over and go back to his solitary life. But as he started the engines and prepared to leave Zephyria, he realized it wasn't going to be that simple. The first few days of the journey were awkward and tense. Zara rarely left her room except to eat, and when she did, she moved quietly through the ship like a ghost. She would take her meals back to her room and eat alone. Alex told himself he was grateful for the privacy, but the silence was starting to feel oppressive. On the third day, Alex knocked on her door. "We need to talk," he said. Zara opened the door cautiously. "Is something wrong? We'll reach Kepler Station in 2 days," Alex said. "It's a good place to start over, Lots of opportunities for work, decent people. I can give you enough credits to get settled. Zara stared at him. You're getting rid of me. I'm giving you your freedom. Alex replied. Isn't that what you want? I don't know what I want, Zara said honestly. I haven't had a choice in anything for so long. I'm not sure I remember how to make decisions. Alex felt a stab of sympathy, but he pushed it down. You'll figure it out. You're stronger than you think. How do you know? Zara asked. You don't know anything about me. She was right, and that bothered him. Then tell me, he said. What happened to you? How did you end up in that market? Zara hesitated. She had kept her story locked inside for so long. She wasn't sure she could tell it without falling apart. But something about Alex's serious expression made her want to try. I was on a transport ship with my family, she began. We were moving to a new colony world. My parents were engineers, and they had been hired to help set up the infrastructure. I was excited about the adventure, about starting fresh somewhere new. Alex leaned against the door frame, listening. We were 3 days out from our destination when the raiders attacked. They came out of nowhere, disabled our engines, and boarded the ship. Most of the passengers were killed immediately, but they kept some of us alive. The younger ones, the ones they could sell. Her voice broke slightly, but she continued. I watched them kill my parents. I tried to fight, tried to run, but there were too many of them. They put us in cages and took us to different markets across the galaxy. I was in 4 different places before I ended up on Zephyria. How long? Alex asked quietly. 6 months. Zara replied. 6 months of being treated like property, like I wasn't even human. Every day wondering if today would be the day someone bought me, or if today would be the day they decided I wasn't worth keeping alive. Alex felt that familiar anger building again. The same anger he had felt when he found his colony destroyed. I'm sorry, he said. No one should have to go through that. The worst part wasn't the physical stuff, Zara continued. It was losing hope, forgetting what it felt like to be treated with kindness. Starting to believe that maybe I really was worthless. You're not worthless, Alex said firmly. Those people were monsters, but that doesn't define your value. Zara looked at him with surprise. It was the first time anyone had said something like that to her in months. Why do you care? Alex was quiet for a long moment. Because I know what it's like to lose everything, to blame yourself for not being strong, enough to save the people you love. What happened to you? Zara asked. Maybe I'll tell you sometime, Alex said. But not today. He turned to leave, then stopped. You don't have to stay in your room all the time. This is your ship too, for as long as you're here. Over the next day, Zara began to venture out more. She explored the ship, learning its layout and systems. She had always been good with technology, and she found herself fascinated by the Star Runner's design. Alex found her in the engine room, studying the plasma converter he had bought at the market. It's a good system, she said, but you've got a power drain in the secondary coupling. If you don't fix it soon, you'll burn out the whole unit. Alex looked at where she was pointing. She was right. He had been so focused on the main engine that he had missed the smaller problem. You know engines? He asked. I know a lot of things. Zara replied. My parents taught me. They said knowledge was the one thing no one could take away from you. They were smart people. Alex said. They were good people, Zara corrected. There's a difference. As they worked together to fix the power drain, Alex found himself relaxing for the first time in days. Zara was competent and skilled, and she didn't ask personal questions or try to fill the silence with meaningless chatter. Maybe having a passenger wouldn't be so bad after all. Maybe, just maybe, they could help each other heal from their past wounds. But he still planned to drop her off at Kepler Station. He told himself that was still the right thing to do, even as part of him began to hope she might choose to stay. The alarm started blaring at 3 in the morning, jolting Alex from his sleep. Red warning lights flashed throughout the Star Runner as the ship's computer announced in its comm. Mechanical voice, critical system failure detected. Life support compromised, estimated time to complete failure, 47 minutes. Alex jumped out of bed and ran to the main control panel. The readings were worse than he had feared. The primary life support system had completely shut down, and the backup system was struggling to keep up. Without fresh air circulation, they would slowly suffocate in their own ship. What's happening? Zara's voice came from behind him. She had thrown on some clothes and was looking at the flashing red lights with wide eyes. Life support is failing, Alex said, his fingers flying over the controls. We've got maybe an hour before the air gets too thin to breathe. Zara moved to another console and began reading the diagnostic reports. The main processor is fried, she said. But look at this. The failure started in the secondary coupling we were working on yesterday. Alex looked at the data she was pointing to. She was right. The power drain they had fixed had caused a cascade failure throughout the entire system. We must have missed something, he said, or something else went wrong. Zara replied, studying the schematics. Alex, we need to get to the engineering section. Now, they ran through the corridors of the ship, emergency lighting casting eerie shadows on the walls. The engineering section was a maze of pipes, cables, and machinery. Steam was leaking from several joints, and the air already felt thicker than normal. There, Zara pointed to a massive control box near the center of the room. The main life support controller. If we can bypass the damaged circuits and reroute power through the emergency systems, we might be able to get it working again. Alex looked at the complex array of circuits and wiring. I don't know enough about these systems to fix this, he admitted. But I do, Zara said, already opening her toolkit. My parents didn't just teach me about engines. They taught me about every system on a ship. They said you never knew what might save your life one day. She began working with a speed and confidence that surprised Alex. Her hands moved surely among the wires and circuits, as if she had done this 100 times before. But Alex could see the pressure getting to her. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her breathing was becoming labored. The air's getting thinner, Alex said. How much longer? I don't know, Zara replied, not looking up from her work. This is more complicated than I thought. The damage goes deeper than just the main processor. Alex watched her work, feeling helpless. This was exactly the kind of situation he had tried to avoid by traveling alone. When you were responsible for someone else's life, the stakes became unbearable. Tell me what to do, he said. I can't just stand here. Hold this wire, Zara said, pointing to a thick cable. And when I say now, connect it to the blue terminal. They worked together in the thickening air, their movements becoming slower and more deliberate as the oxygen levels dropped. Alex found himself thinking about his sister again, about the last time he had failed to save someone he cared about. Alex, Zara said, her voice weaker now, I need you to listen to me. If I pass out, you have to finish this. Connect the red wire to the main power coupling, then restart the system manually. You're not going to pass out, Alex said firmly. We're going to fix this together. I might not make it, Zara replied. The air is getting too thin. But you have to survive. You have to get out of here. Alex looked at her, seeing the determination in her eyes even as her hands shook from exhaustion. Nobody's dying today, he said. Not on my watch, with a final twist of a wrench. Zara connected the last circuit. Now, she shouted. Alex pushed the restart button, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the hum of the life support system began to fill the air. Fresh oxygen started flowing through the vents, and the red warning lights changed to yellow, then green. They both collapsed to the floor. Breathing heavily, we did it, Zara gasped. We actually did it. Alex looked at her with new respect. You saved our lives, he said. I couldn't have done that without you, and I couldn't have done it without you, Zara replied. We make a good team. As they sat there catching their breath, Alex realized something had changed between them. The crisis had forced them to trust each other completely, to work together as partners rather than as a reluctant host and his unwanted guest. Zara, he said finally, I need to tell you something about why I was traveling alone. She looked at him, waiting. 7 years ago, I was a security officer for a small colony called Haven Point. My sister Lisa lived there with her husband and their 2 kids. It was supposed to be a safe place, far from the main shipping routes where pirates usually operated. Alex's voice grew quieter. "But the pirates found us anyway. They attacked during the night. When most people were asleep, I was on duty at the security station, monitoring the perimeter. I saw them coming on the scanners, but I was too far away to warn anyone in time." "What happened?" Zara asked gently. "They destroyed the main power grid first, cutting off all communications. Then they started hitting the residential areas. By the time I got there, most of the buildings were already burning. I found Lisa, trapped under some debris. She was still alive, but barely." Alex paused. "The memory's clearly painful. She looked at me and said, 'I knew you'd come for me.' She trusted me to save her, even when everything was falling apart. But I couldn't lift the debris. I couldn't get her out. I had to watch her die, knowing that if I had been faster, smarter, better at my job, she might have lived." "That's not your fault," Zara said. "You did everything you could." "Did I?" Alex asked. "I keep thinking about all the things I could have done differently. Maybe if I had set up better early warning systems. Maybe if I had been patrolling instead of sitting in the security station. Maybe if I had convinced Lisa to move somewhere safer." "You can't live your life on maybes," Zara said. "Trust me, I know. I spent months wondering if I could have saved my parents if I had been braver, if I had fought harder. But that kind of thinking will drive you crazy. Is that why you've been traveling alone?" she asked. "Because you're afraid of failing someone else?" Alex nodded. "It's easier when you only have to worry about yourself. Less complicated, but also lonelier." Zara observed, "I've been alone for 6 months, and I know how much it hurts. Having someone to talk to, someone who understands, that's worth the risk." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both processing what they had shared. The crisis had stripped away their defenses, forced them to be honest about their fears and their past. "Alex," Zara said finally, "about Kepler Station. I've been thinking about what you said, about starting over there. And I don't think I want to start over alone," she said. "These past few days, working with you, talking with you, it's the first time I've felt like myself since the attack. Like I'm a person again, not just a victim." Alex felt a warmth in his chest that he hadn't experienced in years. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe we both need someone to trust. Maybe we both need a reason to stop running from our past." She looked at him directly. "I'd like to stay, if you'll have me, as a partner, not as a passenger." Alex thought about his sister, about the promise he had made to himself to never get close to anyone again. But he also thought about how it had felt to work with Zara, to trust someone completely, to have someone trust him in return. "Partners," he said finally, extending his hand to her. She shook it, smiling for the first time since he had met her. "Partners." As they made their way back to the main part of the ship, Alex realized that his carefully ordered, solitary life was about to become much more complicated. But for the first time in years, he was looking forward to tomorrow instead of just trying to survive it. The Star Runner continued its journey through space, but now it carried to people who had found something they thought they had lost forever: hope for the future and trust in another person. 6 months had passed since that terrifying night when the life support system nearly killed them both. The Star Runner felt different now, warmer somehow, more alive. Where once there had been silence, now there were conversations over breakfast. Where once there had been empty corridors, now there were signs of two people making a life together. Zara had transformed from a frightened passenger into a confident co-pilot. She knew every system on the ship better than Alex did, and her technical skills had saved them time and money on countless occasions. More importantly, she had brought something back to Alex that he thought he had lost forever: the ability to trust someone completely. They had developed routines that worked for both of them. Alex handled the navigation and business dealings, while Zara managed the ship's maintenance and cargo operations. They shared cooking duties, though Zara was definitely the better cook. Their conversations had grown easier over time, filled with shared jokes and comfortable silences. But now they were approaching Kepler Station again, and Alex couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Docking request approved. The station controller's voice crackled through the radio. Base 7 is ready for you, Star Runner. As Alex guided the ship into the docking bay, he noticed Zara was unusually quiet. She stood at the observation window, watching the bustling activity of the station with a thoughtful expression. Second thoughts? Alex asked. About what? Zara replied. About staying. This is a good place. Like I told you before, lots of opportunities. You could have a normal life here. Zara turned to look at him with surprise. Is that what you want? For me to leave? Alex hesitated. The truth was, he couldn't imagine going back to traveling alone. These past months had been the happiest he had experienced since before Lisa died. But he also felt guilty for keeping Zara on the ship when she could be building a real life somewhere. I want what's best for you, he said finally, and you don't think that's traveling with you? Before Alex could answer, their communication system chimed with an incoming message. Star Runner. This is Captain Rodriguez of the merchant vessel Golden Horizon. We have a business proposition for you. Alex accepted the call, and a middle-aged woman appeared on their screen. Captain Chen. I've heard good things about your operation. Fast deliveries. Fair prices. No questions asked. We have a lucrative contract available if you're interested. What kind of contract? Alex asked. Medical supplies to the Outer Rim colonies. The pay is excellent, but it's dangerous work. Pirates have been hitting supply convoys in that sector. Most captains won't take the risk. Alex and Zara exchanged glances. They had been talking about taking on bigger contracts, but this sounded like exactly the kind of high-risk job that could get them both killed. How much are we talking about? Zara asked. Captain Rodriguez smiled. 50,000 credits for a successful delivery, plus a bonus if you can establish a regular supply route. It was more money than they had ever been offered for a single job. Enough to upgrade their ship, enough to set them up for years of comfortable traveling. We'll need to discuss it, Alex said. Can we get back to you in a few hours? Of course. But don't take too long. We need an answer by tomorrow. After the call ended, Alex and Zara sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Zara spoke up. It's a good opportunity, she said. The kind of job that could change everything for us. It's also incredibly dangerous, Alex replied. Pirates don't just steal cargo. They kill crews who resist. I know, Zara said. But Alex, I've been thinking about something. For months, we've been taking small jobs, staying safe, avoiding risks. But is that really living? Alex looked at her with confusion. What do you mean? I mean, both of us have spent years running from our past, afraid to care about anything or anyone because we might lose it. But what's the point of being alive if you're too scared to actually live? She stood up and began pacing around the small cockpit. My parents didn't teach me about ships and engineering, so I could hide in safe corners of the galaxy. They taught me because they believed in exploring and taking risks to help other people. Those Outer Rim colonies need medical supplies. People are probably dying because convoys are too scared to deliver them. Alex felt a familiar fear rising in his chest. Zara, you don't understand what it's like to lose someone you care about. I can't go through that again, and I can't go through life being afraid of every shadow. Zara replied. Alex, you saved my life. You gave me a second chance. But if I spend that second chance hiding from danger, what was the point? She sat back down and took his hands in hers. I'm not asking you to stop caring about my safety. I'm asking you to trust that I can take care of myself, that we can take care of each other. Alex looked into her eyes and saw the same determination he had seen that night in the engine room. She wasn't the broken, frightened woman he had rescued from the market anymore. She was strong, capable, and ready to face whatever challenges came their way. You really want to do this? He asked. I want to do this with you, Zara said. As partners, as equals. Alex thought about his sister, about the promise he had made to keep people safe. But maybe the best way to honor Lisa's memory wasn't to avoid all risks. Maybe it was to help people, to make a difference, to live the kind of life she would have been proud of. Okay, he said finally. But we do this smart. We upgrade our defenses, plan our route carefully, and we work together on every decision. Zara smiled and squeezed his hands. together the next day. They called Captain Rodriguez and accepted the contract. They spent the following week upgrading the Star Runner with better shields, improved weapons systems, and enhanced communication equipment. Zara designed new emergency protocols, while Alex mapped out the safest possible route to the Outer Rim. On their last night at Kepler Station, they sat in a restaurant overlooking the docking bays, watching ships come and go. "Are you scared?" Zara asked. Terrified, Alex admitted, but also excited. "It's been a long time since I felt like I was doing something important." "Me too," Zara said. "For months after my capture, I felt like my life was meaningless, like I was just surviving from one day to the next, but now I feel like I have a purpose again." They talked late into the night about their plans, their hopes, and their fears. When they finally returned to the Star Runner, Alex made a decision that surprised them both. "I want to make this official," he said, pulling out a legal document. "I'm transferring half ownership of the Star Runner to you. We're not just partners in this job. We're partners in everything." Zara stared at the document in shock. "Alex, I can't accept this. This is your ship, your life." "No," Alex said firmly. "This is our ship now, our life. I don't want you to ever feel like you're just a passenger again." Tears filled Zara's eyes as she signed the document. For someone who had been treated like property for so long, becoming an equal owner in something was more meaningful than Alex could possibly understand. The next morning, they launched from Kepler Station with their first major cargo. As they headed toward the Outer Rim, Zara noticed something different about the ship's name display. "Alex," she said, pointing to the screen. "You changed the registration." Alex smiled. "I thought it was time for a new name, something that represents both of us." The screen now read, "Star Runner, Captains Alex Chen and Zara Mitchell." As they flew through the vast darkness of space, both of them felt something they hadn't experienced in years. They felt like they were home, not because of where they were going, but because of who they were going with. The Star Runner continued its journey toward the Outer Rim, carrying medical supplies that could save lives, and to people who had finally learned that the greatest adventures in life are the ones you share with someone you trust. Behind them, Kepler Station grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light in the endless sea of stars. Ahead of them lay uncertainty, danger, and possibility. But for the first time in their lives, neither Alex nor Zara was facing the future alone. They had found something more valuable than safety, more important than money, and more lasting than any cargo they could carry. They had found each other, and they had found home.